Hello and welcome back. Last time we created an identity with the goal to start up all the storage components locally or in a server, but in a private isolated environments, just to have a very scalable storage system. So today we will try to start the metadata server, the satellite. So this repository contains a few diagrams to understand better the different components and technical details. And in the overview, we can see, transparent background, but okay, what we are looking for is the right side. So usually you don't need it. If you would like to be part of the storage network, you can just start a storage node. What we are looking for here is just understanding better the components. So we will try to start all the components, not just what usually needed to be joined to the network. And storage nodes storing the real data, but there should be some metadata server which stores the location of the data. Okay, there is a key. Where is it stored? How can it be retrieved? And this is the satellite. And actually, satellite is a group of microservices. So there are multiple. This is the left side is a satellite, the right side is a storage nodes which stores the data, and they are communicating with each other. And there are a few helper services. So a lot of services, three data. Okay, one is the Redis, and two databases actually. Which is supposed to be started for the satellite, and we will start with the satellite API only. So with the first and most important microservice. It contains the UI as well, but we will just disable the UI because we need only the API to upload and download files. So let's start. As we discussed last time, we need an identity. So let's generate an identity with identity create satellite identity dir. So it will use the subdirectory. Oh, and I almost forgot to add the difficulty because it's not a public storage node. There is no restriction. You can use whatever you would like to do. So it's in the satellite. We have the TLS keys. Everything is fine. We also need a configuration. We don't like to generate the configuration. It's possible to generate some placeholder, but we would like to understand all of the specific keys one by one. So we just create. And we need to install the satellite. So one option is just download it from storage, the latest release. Here, the identity and satellite and everything is supposed to be here combined. There are Docker images, but now I just installed the latest main. And it's supposed to be available from my go bin directory. So I can just run satellite. I would like to run the API microservice, which is the most important microservice. Okay, it's not working. So it couldn't store identity there. So I need to set up the identity directory, which is the satellite. And actually I have config there as well, which is also the satellite. Okay. Config there, identity there. There are a lot of different configurations, so it's not very easy to understand what do we need. I think this should be run the yeah. So now we need the database, which is not set up. So we need to modify the config. But first we can try to find the database settings. It's not database settings, so it's not very easy because actually this is just database because we have a lot of options and you can see the defaults, but that's also tricky because it depends from the version what you use. What I use is a development build. If you download, then it's a release build. The defaults are different. So usually what I do is just also I can also define the defaults release, which means that the defaults are similar. For example, this reputation flush interval, it can be different. 2 hours. Was it different? If we use just dev here, it's 2 minutes with dev, so it's definitely. So we need release. We would like to use some production-like system. So let's set up the configuration. So we need a cockroach DB first of all. So probably it's better to start with starting the cockroach DB. So cockroach is it's one binary. You can just download it, and probably the easiest way to start is just okay. Let's start a tmax session and create a cockroach database, and let's say start single node, so no clustering. Usually you would like to use clusters. Insecure, again, usually you should generate some TLS certificates and here's as well. HTTP address is just a web admin. It's very useful because you can check the used SQL and the hotspot, and store is where the data will be stored. So let's go. So let's start it again, and probably it's enough to use cockroach. Okay, it's running. And if we are here, probably it's also good to start the Redis server. So I will just say it's Redis server, and oh, it's already running. So let's kill that one, and this is our Redis server. Okay, so it's time to configure our satellite, and again we would like to just use the absolutely minimal required configuration, what we really need, and later we can adjust the configuration. And we have seen that the cockroach should be configured with the database flag. You can use it as a flag or a configuration, or we have the other database. So some of the data is separated to a different database, which is the meta info. So database contains all of the main data, projects, users, all the settings. Meta info is where the data is living, or actually the metadata of the data. So where is the data, object key, and so on. So we need both two different schemes, and they will be created. And for the live accounting, this is where we use Redis. There is a memory. There is an option to use an in-memory cache, but I prefer to have something which is more production-like. So we can start or we can try to start the satellite. Or is it satellite run? Probably I used the help, right? So couldn't be parsed, mail no address. So this is also a UI, and that's one problem. The other problem is that we need to send out the registration confirmation emails. So these requires templates which should be set. Usually I set it to match. So these are stored in the source code repository. You can compile the UI to some directory and point to there, or the mail templates are there as well. But I wouldn't like to use UI now. I would like to start the most simple satellite for them. So I can just start to ... And we also need to set the SMTP. That would be in the next error. I will turn it off. If this is turned off, I don't need to set the mail parameters. We need two other secret to be set before we start. One is the console out token secret. So this is for only for the UI, so we can actually use anything here. It's better to use a random number, but the random number should be generated in the auth service. So this is a totally different story. We will cover it later. Now we can put it anything, or even to do, because this is when you connect to the auth service to create new tokens, so on. The other one is more important. This is the order encryption key. So there is a tricky behavior which will be covered again later, but there is a when somebody would like to upload something, it connects to the satellite. Satellite will return some data, and some part of this data is encrypted with this key. Later, this metadata will be sent to the storage nodes together with the real data, and the storage node will report back this metadata to the satellite that, oh, the user stored some data here. Please give me money. At that point, it's useful if the satellite can decrypt the data and read some metadata, and correlate with the original request. So that's where we need some random number. So it's better to generate some. This is, I think it's 32 characters, and this is just the identifier. So I think that's all. If we use the release, so probably we need to set up a few more. The from. So hopefully it will be fixed later, but we need the SMTP, the from address. What is the name of that one? Mail from and mail SMTP address. It shouldn't be required, and I have a patch to make it work. Okay, so but now this is a workaround, mail SMTP address and mail.from and c.bobmail.info. And and so we set this to the current directory, but there are no HTML, so it looks like we are cheating. So let's start. Okay, the one missing point is that the database is empty, so we need to create something. So the official way to migrate the database or create the scheme is just run satellite run and migration. So here we have all the microservices, but there is a specific subcommand to run the migration, which will just update the database. But we will use a different approach, which is mainly just for the testing. There is a secret environment variable, storage database options, migrations unsafe, which will migrate everything plus creates some test data. So this is not from production because everybody knows the test data credentials. That's why it's not unsafe, but it will be just good enough for start the work. So now we can start everything, and it's supposed to be, yes, I think it just started. There should be some other outputs, so I assume we have the migrations. So, and the satellite actually can be used. And finally, the migration is finished, and we can join to the server on the port 7777. So let's try to create buckets and upload and download files. So let's start to use the meta info server or the satellite. So what we need is an uplink CLI. We can just install it from the latest source, or we can download the binaries from the release as usual. And we need a secret, so which can be defined with uplink access. It can be stored in the configuration, but when you have multiple access, it might be easier just to set the environment variable. And now we can try to list the available buckets. Okay, it's some usage data which is sent to the storage labs to improve the uplink, so I'm fine with it. And I have actually a bucket, but I can also create bucket 2, and I can upload, for example, the index HTML to the bucket, and it's uploaded. It's a little bit tricky because we don't have any storage nodes yet which are connected, but it's so small, this index HTML, so it's actually smaller than the metadata which is supposed to be stored to find the right storage nodes, so it's just saved in the database. And actually we can, I think we have a cat, but we'll see. Oh, no cat, so CP TMPA TMPA. I used the empty index HTML. Anyway, it's working. We have the metadata server. We don't have the storage nodes yet. That's the exercise for the one of the next videos. And the other question is that how did I set this? Where this is come? Where this? The other question is that this uplink access is just set magically, right? That how can we identify the access to be used? But that's a longer question, so we will discuss it in one of the next videos. See you there.